So, what, how, and why of cooperation? Why do we need cooperation? What is cooperation? Then, how to achieve cooperation? See, whenever we think of administration and management, the first idea in general, first idea that comes to our mind is some kind of institution, structure, planning, organizing, controlling, regulating things, getting things done. So when we think of administration and management, we think of different kinds of activities. Then managing thing and basically it is about getting things done, accomplishing some kind of objective. Two or more persons working together. But think about the core content of administration and management. There can be institution, structure, departments, rules, procedures. What we think are there protocols to be followed, then policy, then objectives, targets to be accomplished, one other courses of action to be followed, supervision, direction, control, identification of deviation, then application of correctives, collecting feedback, application of correctives, and process goes on and on. The vast matrix of activity, different kinds of activities to be carried out by different kinds of individuals, different types of individuals, experts, and specialists. But in the core of administration and management, we have cooperation. First of all, you find that two or more persons, they assemble, they share their thoughts, views, opinion about something. They decide to accomplish something. They have some kind of common objective in mind. They give consent to collective action. When they decide to accomplish something which is common by making individual contributions in a rhythmic fashion, they start working together, taking collective action, going for collective enterprise, cooperation comes into existence. And this cooperation constitutes the very core. Two or more persons, they decide to work together to accomplish some goals and objectives. Cooperation begins. They sit together and they start defining goals, objectives, determining policies. But to ensure that this collective action remains in continuance on sustained basis, you develop a structure, method, technique, process, rules, regulations, hierarchy, etc. That you will be the president, he will be the vice president or director, he is head of finance, or he is the head of PR or HR or R&D. We divide. So that from here onwards, cooperation does not end up becoming the hostage of moods and fancies or whims and fancies of one other individual. I'm not going to contribute. I'm not going to cooperate. I'm going away. No, 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 no. Everything should be on paper. It should be properly institutionalized. And then you can say that this cooperation, where it is institutionalized, becomes coordination that constitute the very core of any administration and management. So basically, when we think of administration and management, we think of some kind of cooperation among two or more persons. And this cooperation is deliberately designed. It does not happen on its own. You decide, keeping the ultimate objective in mind. You develop a structure, method, technique, process around it. So, in the core of administration and management, you have cooperation. Two or more persons that decide to work together to accomplish common objective to ensure that this collective action remains stable, or to make it sustainable, develop a structure, method, technique, process, rules, regulation around it so as to bring some kind of certainty, some kind of predictability in the behavior. That today I am doing something, tomorrow I may not be ready to do the thing. No, you need to make the people bound by the rules, regulation, method, technique, process, which are decided collectively. This is cooperation. It constitutes the very core of all organization, public organization, private organization, civil organization, military organization, religious organization, social organization, kahi bhi chale jao. In the core of administration management, you have this collective action. So, what is cooperation? What is cooperation? Simple. Cooperation is a positive behavioral phenomenon Positive, I'm not talking about the goals and objectives. Otherwise, terrorists, they also cooperate with one another. I'm not talking about the sacrosancy or something of the, I'm not talking about the objectives. I'm just talking about cooperation means that they are helping one another. They are working in a rhythmic fashion. In that sense, you can say there is cooperation. What's clear? So two or more persons, when they voluntarily decide, there is an element of voluntariness. There's an element of willingness, and they decide to work together to become a part of collective enterprise to accomplish a common objective. This is known as cooperation. It is a uh, reflection of a collective and progressive behavioral orientation of two or more persons. Why? Because they decide to work with one another, to work with the limitations of one another, to accomplish something which none of them could accomplish in individual capacity. Cooperation. Why do we need cooperation? Why do we need cooperation? We need cooperation because each one of us is incomplete. We need cooperation because each one of us is incomplete. Each one of us suffers from one other kind of biological, psychological, intellectual, or any other dimension of behavior. One other kind of limitations. You may be very good to plan out things, but you may be pathetic when it comes to execute the things. There may be a person who is very good at execution, but he doesn't know how to plan out things. That broad picture never comes in his mind. You just assign him something that it has to be done. But he cannot develop a broad, integrated perspective on something. Some may be good at planning but poor in execution. Some may be very good in execution, yeah, but not so good in planning. There may be a person who is reasonably good in planning as well as execution, but there is another problem, behavioral problem. Suffers from one other kind of limitations, low morale, low motivation, eccentric kind of person. उसका कोई ठिकाना नहीं है, क्या करे नहीं करे, पागल किस्म का व्यक्ति है, आज क्या बोलेगा कल क्या बोलेगा पता नहीं है, इज नॉट ट्रस्ट वर्दी, टैलेंट वाइज साउंड, बट यू कैन नॉट रिलाई ऑन दैट पर्सन इन टर्म्स ऑफ ऑनेस्टी इंटीग्रिटी, अगर इस ढंग की चीजें तुम डिमांड कर रहे हो. So different persons, different kind of orientation. Every person suffers from one other kind of limitations. Remember, this is heterogeneity. We differ. Heterogeneity is one of the fundamental principles of life. We have different types of flowers, different types of fruits, different kinds of plants and trees, and different types of soils. Heterogeneity is a common thing. When this heterogeneity is not taken as a liability, when heterogeneity is brought together in a rhythmic fashion, it becomes cooperation. All of us suffer from one other kind of limitation. That's why we need cooperation. We need to work together. Why? Because we compensate for the deficiencies of one another. You may be very good at accounting and auditing, but you are not so good in planning. There may be a person very good at planning, but is not so good in accounting and auditing. Is very sound when it comes to diagnose the problem. This person is very much this person is known for his social skill and human skill, but technical skill zero. That person has very good technical skill, but when we come together, we compensate for the deficiency of one another. And finally, the composite expression of well organized and composite expression of this heterogeneity leads to accomplishment of something which none of us could accomplish in individual capacity. सब अलग अलग टाइप के, लेकिन जब इकट्ठे होते हैं तो वो कुछ इतना बड़ा हासिल कर लेते हैं जो उनमें से कोई भी अकेले हासिल नहीं कर सकता था. This is what draws the most prolific line of distinction between human beings on the one hand and animals on the other. Otherwise, it would be difficult for us to be the masters of the planet. It is something like this, our ability. We realize the significance, or we learn. We learn from our experiences gradually over a period of time. We learn quite early, quite early. We learn from our experiences that yes, if we do not work together, if we fail to work together, then we will not survive for long. We realized it quite early. We began cooperating with one another. And gradually, in the course of time, we kept on expanding the scope of this cooperation. And then it has led to development of social system or cultural system or political system, entire political administrative system or society, culture, economy, what I talk about. These are all institutionalized cooperation. A meaningful or productive pattern of interdependency institutionalized, brought under some kind of rules, regulation, laws, protocol, value system, number of things. Why? To achieve an element of regularity. To achieve an element of regularity, discipline, predictability, and stability, without which it would be difficult for us to live peacefully. So you can say that the growth and development of human civilization, among several other things, is heavily indebted to this spirit of cooperation that we realized and we developed much better compared to animals, and that's why we are ruling. आप मतलब इसमें कंट्रोवर्सी में नहीं जाना है, बस समझाने के लिए बता रहे हैं we are ruling or what we can. That's why we need cooperation. So what is cooperation? Why do we need cooperation? And third question, how is cooperation achieved? Cooperation can be achieved. It is not so easy to achieve cooperation because human beings, two or more persons, differ from one another in terms of their likes, dislikes, preferences, behavioral orientation. They also differ from one another in terms of their individual interest. Thousands of persons working in a large, complex organization, but not necessary that all of them have same objectives. No. In terms of individual objectives, they differ from one another. Somebody has joined this organization only for money. Somebody has joined this organization to learn the nuances, the dynamics of that work. He wants to, develop some technical knowledge of the subject matter so that he could establish his own institution. Then somebody has come for the purpose he doesn't know. Individual purpose objectives may differ, but common objective remains the same. That you have to work for the growth and development of this organization, then only organization can fulfill your needs. Then how to achieve cooperation? Chester Bernard, one of the greatest scholars of public administration, Chester Bernard defined so well, so nicely, he examined the constituents of cooperation. He said that cooperation can be achieved only when three conditions are duly met with. There has to be a common objective. Common objective is unificatory, has great unificatory value. It unifies. If all of us have individual objectives and we want to pursue individual objectives, then no cooperation will ever take place. Why? You will not converge. You will move in different directions. But if you may have different individual objectives, but you have given consent to common objective. There is one common goal and objective, and all of you know that if we contribute to accomplish this common objective, then our individual goals and objectives will be served. जिसको पैसा चाहिए उसको पैसा मिल जाएगा, काम सीखना है वो काम सीख लेगा, ठीक है. जो किसी और कोई अपना बिजनेस करना चाहता है उसके लिए कुछ एक्सपीरियंस चाहिए तो वो उसको वो चीज़ें मिल जाएंगी. हर व्यक्ति को कुछ ना कुछ मिल जाए, लेकिन पहले कॉमन ऑब्जेक्टिव में कंट्रीब्यूट करना पड़ेगा. तो कॉमन ऑब्जेक्टिव is something which is required for any kind of cooperation. Second thing, willingness to contribute. So different members differ from one another, but one thing has to be achieved, that is willingness to contribute. If they don't have genuine willingness, if they don't have genuine willingness to contribute into this collective enterprise, cooperation is not possible. Cooperation is not something which can be accomplished by pointing your guns towards somebody. Cooperation has to come willingly. It has to come voluntarily. Otherwise, it is not cooperation. किसी को दिखा दो गन, तो आपको कोऑपरेट करना है, नहीं तो ये कोई तरीका है, ये कोऑपरेशन हुआ ही नहीं फिर. It has to be willing contribution. It's a willingness and then the voluntariness is, it is essential. And willingness to contribute will come only when that person, in his assessment, he has found that by contributing into this action, he is going to be benefited more. So, desire or reluctance, some kind of two waves going on, but desire is stronger. That person in his individual assessment finds that his desire is stronger than reluctance. That if I contribute, I'm going to gain more. Because if you contribute, you will have to invest something. But against that investment, you are going to get something more than that. There may be several reasons because of which the person has a stronger desire. You have desire as a reluctance. But desire has overpowered reluctance. Then only contribution is possible. Then only willingness to contribute will arise. This is the second condition. So the persons from whom you are seeking cooperation, you need to ensure that these persons, they have lot of these persons have confidence in the entire collective enterprise that if we contribute, we are going to be benefited more than anything. Their desire should be stronger than their reluctance. No, I want to do that. I don't want to do that. So I want to do that. It must be stronger compared to the other one. Willingness to contribute. And third thing for cooperation is ability to communicate. We must be capable of communicating with one another. It is only through communication, one of the important constituents, through communication that we define goals, purpose, and objective. Through communication, I can convince you. I can convince you. I can give justification for this collective, why this collective action is required. What is the common goal, purpose, and objective? And if this is accomplished, how you are going to be benefited. It is through communication that I can diffuse all negativity in you. It is through communication that I can achieve intrapersonal integration. हर एक पर्सन के अंदर जो दो धाराएं चल रही हैं, ये करना है या नहीं करना है, मैं उसे तोड़ दूंगा पावरफुल कम्युनिकेशन से, और तुम्हें अंदर ऐसी भावना जगा दूंगा कि यस, ये करना है, यही सही है. So through communication, you can define goals, purpose, and objective. Through communication, you can achieve that intrapersonal integration. You can convince, you can give justification for the same, and you can prepare them. You can enhance or improve the level of morale and motivation. You can generate and create that inner, inner drive and force that propel a person towards desirable activities. Offer that kind of collective enterprise. Then cooperation becomes possible. So, how to achieve cooperation? We can achieve cooperation by defining goals, purpose, and objective. There has to be common purpose and objective, which is acceptable to all. If your common purpose and objective is such that the members in front of you, they don't think that by accomplishing those objectives, their interest will be served, then no cooperation will ever come into existence. So you have to define the common purpose and objective in such a way that if anyone contributes towards the accomplishment of that objective, his individual objective will also be accomplished. So first is common objective, and then willingness to contribute. That willingness to contribute comes only when they are convinced that what they are going to get will be more than what they are going to give into or what they are going to contribute. Satisfaction has to be there. Contribution, satisfaction, equilibrium. But they should know that what they are contributing, against that contribution, they are going to get something better than this. More than what they contribute, they are getting more than their contribution. Or at least they get as much contribution they are making. Clear? And the third point is ability to come. So common objective, willingness to contribute. Common objective, willingness to contribute, and ability to communicate. These three constituents are extremely essential for any kind of cooperation to come into existence. Be it public organization or private organization, civil organization, whatever be the nature or size of organization, cooperation is the essential ingredient of any administration. And in fact, all the tool, technique, method, process, structure, all such things are designed so as to facilitate smooth cooperation on sustained basis, to reduce the possibilities of friction and conflict, to bring an element of regularity and predictability and discipline in the behavior of members towards one another. And then only cooperation is achieved. And you see what we have accomplished. Cooperation. Organizations working in different parts of the world, more than 150, 130 countries, large, complex, giant only because of this institutionalized so cooperation holds the key to administration management in whatever form or denomination you can see. So I've answered three questions. Why do we need cooperation? What is cooperation? And how is cooperation? Thank you.